Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's
alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, and with me as always is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India horror, the expert of guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Aimee Rose.
Hi, I feel like I should have a whip to crack every time you call me the India of horror. Just go, whoosh.
Is that because I asked earlier on if people would understand what the reference was to India horror?
That was a few weeks ago.
That was on an episode, wasn't it?
That was on an
So
episode.
they should know what it
so
is.
they should know now. And now that I've said the whip, they should definitely know.
That would just post that.
that.
That or just post that cosplay picture of you as Indiana Jones, problem solved.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Wait until we need to promote Playing with Bones again.
You just told me. This is why we have the issue.
What issue,
I
Aimee?
don't know what you're on about.
We're going to have to call in HR.
I'm HR.
Since when?
Because we've delegated the workload here. I'm HR. You can be sales.
That's where we're making no money.
Advertising.
All right. So we are now at kind of part 3. Explain this to us.
Okay. So in what I think is a first for us here at the Horrorverse Network, we have a story today that is a spin-off from our last series on Pearl Douglas. So for the past 2 weeks, we spoke about Powder Keg Farm and the violence that consumed rural Texas for over 60 years. A story that would only leave one survivor, and that being the 80s scream queen, Maxine Minx Miller.
And Scream Queen is a title that could describe either her career in porn or horror. She knew how to put on a loud show.
She did.
But
Yeah, she's a good screamer.
I can't think of any other series where we overlapped from one story to the other. Can you?
Sawyer's?
No, that's one series.
story.
They're one family. It's one story.
No.
Like we had Pearl Part 1, Pearl Part 2, and this is Ernest Miller.
Did we ever do Charles Lee Ray?
Yep.
We did do Charles Lee Ray. Yeah, you would really consider that. Did we ever do? And there was a few parts there. But that was a continuation again, wasn't it?
She says in her good guy jumper. Yeah, it was a fucking. Anyway, all right. So
You're a good guy.
So okay, yeah. So we're ready to go. Okay. Yes. So yes, so she was a loud girl.
Yeah.
She knew how to. She had a fine set of lungs on her when it came to acting in any manner of acting.
Yeah, whether it be. No, I'm just going to stop there. So now, unlike the past 2 weeks where the only source for the story was Maxine herself, this week was a plethora of witnesses, victims, and killers. So we're not solely relying on Maxine for the story here.
Saying that, whether all the details of the past 2 weeks have been 100% accurate or not, the woman spins a good yarn. Yeah. The tale of Pearl Douglas is a crazy one, and Maxine made sure to get every drop of mental out of the few facts we actually have on that case.
And well, if you thought that story was mental, then buckle up, Doc, because this week we're not just talking about serial killer couples with a pet alligator. This week we're talking about Maxine's transition even from adult skin flicks to horror royalty. We're talking serial killer cults disguising their actions through a much popular and sensationalized killing spree perpetrated by a man called the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez. And we're talking your favorite subject, and that's toxic Christianity and how simple scripture can be distorted to suit the agenda of any old nut with a heart on they're deathly terrified to use.
Awesome. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about... I always wondered, because he wasn't caught yet, Was Joseph D'Angelo pissed off when they gave his nickname to Richard Ramirez?
And he had original to the
Or
nickname.
did he feel even cooler because he was the original?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like being copied, though. And I feel like he's the kind of man that might kill you if you copy them.
Did the original Night Stalker moniker appear? This would be interesting. When did they start calling him the original Night Stalker? First appeared. Oh!
Wrong?
Richie Ramirez had the title first. They did not start calling him the original Night Stalker until the early 2000s.
Yeah, but is that because they were able to trace back his crimes as a whole way back before Richard Ramirez started?
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's why they decided original, but...
Well, it answers my question. D'Angelo wasn't pissed off because he didn't have a nickname yet.
So why called him the original Night Stalker if Richard Ramirez had it first?
Because he was the original person stalking around your house at night before Ramirez did it.
I know, but Ramirez had the title first.
Because we ran out of fucking serial killer names by the time the 80s came. By the time the 2000s came. I mean, BTK was writing his own in. Yeah, you know they're running out when you got to supply your own. Anyway, before we get into Maxine and Ernest Miller, I'm going to give everyone a quick refresher on who Richie Ramirez was and what made him so terrifying. That way, we have a bit of a foundation to work on before the Millers, rather than just jumping back and forth between all the crimes, confusing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people don't know who this guy is, but still.
Oh, yeah. But it's nice to give a bit of background. Yeah. So Richard Ramirez remains one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, a figure whose crimes shattered the sense of safety across California in the mid-1980s. His combination of random victim selection, extreme brutality, and demonic symbolism created a climate of fear that was unlike anything the state had seen before. To understand how he became the Night Stalker, it's essential to look at his early life, the motivations that drove him, his crimes, his capture, and the long shadow he cast over California. So go for it, Doc. You're definitely our Ramirez expert, so just give us a quick rundown.
First of all, before we get into it, is Night Stalker not like a comic book style?
Oh, every time I think of Night Stalker, I think of your man from X-Men. Nightcrawler.
I think more Batman. You know, in the shadows.
In the shadows.
Except, you know, like an anti-Batman. That smells of terrible leather. Wet leather. And apparently had awful breath. Is it halitosis? Is that what you have when you get bad in your teeth?
Gingivitis, halitosis.
Yeah, well, you had all that shit.
Yeah.
So, Ricardo Liva Munoz Ramirez. I gotta get the R in there. Was born on February.
That's English, Josh.
February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas.
Also
Same
English.
place as the Guerreros. The youngest of 5 children, also like Eddie Guerrero. I don't know if that's true. Eddie had a lot of brothers, but I don't know if he was the youngest. Of 5. Look that up, see if we can find out. His childhood was shaped by instability, fear, and violence. His father, Julian Ramirez, was known for his explosive temper, often disciplining his children harshly.
Shit, I just forgot his last name.
Guerrero,
sorry.
Guerrero.
I don't think that's Scottish.
Oh,
Josh.
no. They like to roll their R's on that Guerrero, all right. I know that for a fact. Viva la Rasta.
The Rasta.
Rasta is actually, or is he? How many brothers?
He was the youngest of 4. You were close.
So the Ramirez had one more on him. If they had a match, the Ramirez were one up.
Yeah, maybe. Now, I only asked about brothers. Maybe he had sisters.
And he might have had, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, no. This is just children. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Right, we're confusing everybody. Let's get back to the subject here. Forget the Guerreros.
I'm just curious now.
I mean, Eddie gets enough. I love Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero is one of the best of all times. But I mean, 20 years on, he's still mentioned weekly on television. that has to show you how fucking high up that guy is.
He was the youngest of 6 children.
Ooh. So the Guerreros would have kicked the Ramirez. That's what do the Ramirez is have an advantage with having so many psychopaths on their side. I mean, if their cousin comes down, all hell's breaking loose, and Richie himself might murder a few people.
That's true, but his cousin's not allowed in it.
And
Children.
Julian, his dad, also had an explosive temper, often disciplining his children harshly, and sharply. Richard frequently fled the house to escape the beating, spending nights outside or with friends, learning early that the darkness felt safer than home. This guy's just fucking Batman waiting. If he had just taken one turn towards the light, this guy would have been Batman.
I was born into the darkness.
Oh, he's Bane.
Bane, that's who is the darkness.
I was born in darkness. You simply inherited it. One of the most pivotal influences in Ramirez's life was his cousin, Miguel Mike Ramirez, a Green Beret veteran who had returned from the Vietnam War deeply traumatized.
Well, the Green Berets are particularly vicious,
like
certainly.
Style,
yeah, not vicious, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's
He's
group
the Green
of Green
Beret.
Berets.
Yeah.
So Mike exposed Richard, then only 12 years old, to graphic Polaroids depicting rape, murder, and torture of Vietnamese women. Instead of shielding a child from horror, Mike glorified it. In Richard's presence, Mike shot and killed his own wife during an argument, and the boy watched her collapse to the floor. This moment carved a lasting psychological scar.
But especially if it's somebody that you look up to, you're going to think, well, oh, this is
just
a common thing.
Batman watched both his parents get shot down in front of him, became a vigilante.
That's true.
So,
but that wasn't his mom.
No. This is your cousin that you look up to. I suppose he did not really look up to Joe Chill. He didn't even know who Joe Chill was. I didn't even really know who Joe Chill was for a long time. I mean, my first exposure to who killed Batman's parents was the Joker because of Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah, that would have been my first Batman parent killer.
Well, I think my first Batman parent killer would have been the animated series.
Yeah.
You don't really pay attention to who does the fucking deed at that point. It's when you watch the movie for the first time, you're like, oh, the Joker did it all along. When he didn't.
Yeah.
Just for Burton's world.
No.
So Ramirez's adolescence. Creepy.
That is so creepy.
We're all fucked.
So is the Joker the dead
And that's
parents?
it. We're done for tonight. We'll see you next week. For people who don't watch the video and listen to the audio, we got a little Ouija board sitting right in front of us here, and the planchette just went dropping to the ground.
Why was it that it dropped, though?
It was in Damien Dilligaff's mouth here. Damien Dilligaff is the name of the skull. He has been with me for a very long time.
Because it looks like
before he was a skull.
Yeah, we used to have a body. He did. We don't know what happened to
blood and everything, and then we just had that argument. But I swore I'd keep. Anyway, Ramirez's adolescence spiraled into drugs, mainly marijuana and LSD, petty theft, and an increasing fascination with Satanism, sexual violence, and breaking into homes. His time spent working at a Holiday Inn also foreshadowed his later crimes. He was once caught trying to assault a sleeping woman inside a room he had unlawfully entered. By the time he drifted to California in 1983, Ramirez was already primed for the violence he would unleash. The combination of childhood trauma, desensitization to brutality, I have struggled with that word ever since Drowning Pool's second album, chronic drug use, and the growing obsession with evil formed a dangerous psychological brew. Unlike many serial killers who followed specific patterns, Ramirez defied typical profiling. His motivations were messy, chaotic, and driven by impulse rather than organization. What he consistently sought, however, was power and domination, and the ability to invoke fear and exert total control over those he encountered. Not to make another Batman reference, but even though I keep saying he's like Batman in the sense of the darkness and all this and the death and all that stuff in his childhood, very Joker-like in his MO.
And it's,
That's what makes Richard Ramirez so hard to catch over other serial killers. There are no patterns. This guy is happy to kill women, children, adults, old people, couples, singles. Sometimes he won't kill you. Sometimes he'll just rape you and leave.
Not to profile, but would he be originally from South America? Because they have a lot of the most vicious.
Texas. El Paso, Texas.
No, but I know that. But say his family. Do you know would they have come from? Because
generally El Paso and Texas in general are right on that Mexican border.
Oh, okay.
Tex-Mex.
Texarkana.
Do you know, they're really, there's just a border between them.
Okay.
this is why the Texans are so gung-ho about their walls and all that shit, you know? Because they're the ones that literally have them coming in. And then you have like New Mexico all around the south and all that area. And I mean, technically, Texas and Los Angeles, all that belonged to Mexico originally.
Oh, is that what the Alamo was about?
I have no idea.
Okay.
His obsession with Satanism gave him a symbolic framework. He used it not only as a personal belief system, but as a weapon, carving pentagrams, demanding victims to swear to Satan, and taunting the public with occult imagery. While experts often argue Ramirez's Satanism was more performance than theology, it undeniably emboldened him and amplified his notoriety. And what a fucking time to be doing it the 80s, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Woo! They were all about Satan back then.
Yep.
Ramirez was also driven by opportunity. He didn't stalk in a single type of victim. He attacked the elderly, children, couples, women alone, just like I said. Anyone whose home he could infiltrate easy. This unpredictability made him especially terrifying. Basically, if he found an open window, he found an open door, you're the victim.
Yikes.
That's all he needed.
Open door.
He wasn't like fucking Dennis Rader with his PJs. You remember what PJs are?
Yes.
Pajamas. They're his projects when he was pretending to be a like 007 agent following people.
What a fucking tool.
Yup, he was so fucking lame.
His PJs. No way. PJ masks.
Ramirez's crime spree officially began in 1984 and escalated dramatically in 1985. His method was simple but devastating. He broke into homes at night, usually through unlocked windows, and attacked whoever he found inside. His crimes included murder, sexual assault, child abduction, brutal beatings, and theft. Unlike other serial killers, Ramirez did not restrict himself to one area of California. He roamed freely, hitting Los Angeles, the San Gabriel Valley, and later communities around San Francisco. The level of violence varied from case to case, but all shared his signature randomness and cruelty. He often used guns, knives, blunt objects, or simply his hands. In several cases, he raped the victims, but spared their lives, only to murder someone else in a different home later that night. He taunted police and media, leaving symbols and messages meant to instill fear, and as the crimes mounted, detectives saw increasing connections. First, it was the shoe prints.
Mm-hmm.
They kept finding the same shoe prints at the place. And the mayor at the time, I think, fucked it up for them by announcing on the news that they had found the shoe prints and named the brand of shoe. And Richard Ramirez took his shoes off at that moment and threw them over a bridge. Ballistic matches and a consistent entry through open and unsecured windows. The press branded him the Night Stalker, and the name stuck because synonyms with nocturnal terror sound cool.
Sure do.
Ramirez's downfall came not from careful police strategy, but from a crucial mistake. After one of his attacks in 1985, his fingerprints were recovered from a stolen vehicle left behind at the crime scene. His prints, already on file from earlier arrests, identified him. Now, before we get into how he got caught, right, this is fucked up as well, right? This is crazy. Richard Ramirez got pulled over in a stolen car after, like, one of these crimes, and directly asked by the police officer, messing, jokingly, "You're not this Night Stalker guy, are you?" And Richard was like, oh no, wouldn't want to meet him. And then he was left going, his stolen car.
I'd leave that cop go as well, to be honest.
So on August 30th, 1985, his face appeared across newspapers and on live television. He had been on a trip to Arizona to see his sister. Answering the question, yes, Ramirez had sisters. Visiting his sister. He was basically trying to get out of there because the heat was. He could feel the heat coming, and it was like, maybe
Arizona's
I should go on a
alright
trip
to
for a
go,
week or two,
yeah.
and then come back and see what's going on.
Should've gone for
What
more
he
than
didn't
a
know
week.
was while he was gone, they had identified him. So he walks into a convenience store and saw all the customers staring at him in recognition.
He'd have been jumped here.
Then he looked down and saw his face all over the newspapers.
Yeah.
And then all the people in the neighborhood started going, El Muerte, El Muerte, El Muerte.
As in a murderer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the murderer. So he fled, attempting to steal a car and escape the neighborhood, but residents had had enough. just like you said they do here.
Mhm.
What followed was a remarkable moment of community action. Civilians chased him down, subdued him, and held him until police arrived. The man who had terrorized the state for over a year was finally in custody. His trial became a media spectacle. Ramirez, ever the showman, flashed pentagrams, showed praises to Satan, and cultivated a bizarre celebrity status among some followers and a shit ton of groupies.
I don't get it.
Oh, apparently this dude was getting nudes sent to him constantly in prison. Like
There's a
every
lot
other
of
letter had a
people-
naked girl in it.
A lot of people in prison get that, and it's not particularly
Well,
because
he got an
he
abnormal
was
amount.
supposed to be. Oh yeah. What I mean is, some women are fucking weird. As in, like, as soon as you're a murderer, it's like,
but these were hot women. These weren't like fucking some weird, crazy fucking murder fetish fucking trailer park fucking welfare woman, you know, that's been drinking and taking drugs and crack all her life. These were like fucking models, you know, hot women fucking were messing.
yeah, I don't get that.
In 1989, not that, I'm not even going to try. Now, in 1989, he was convicted on 43 charges, including 13 murders. He was sentenced to death, though he would die of natural causes in 2013 while still on death row.
He actually had lymphoma.
wasn't it?
Yeah, he had B-cell lymphoma. He also had a chronic hepatitis C.
Well, that's what you get for raping loads of people.
Absolutely.
Especially in the 80s. Surprised you can track fucking AIDS or something. Well, all women. And they could have AIDS. I mean,
They could have AIDS.
They weren't, but none of them were drug users.
If he was
or anything
medically
like that.
circumcised, medically performed, male circumcision can prevent you from getting AIDS.
That, or he avoided all women who were interested in bisexual males and drug users.
Maybe he just picked virgins.
No. Families he went after, man. The Night Stalker era reshaped California's sense of safety. Unlike other criminals who targeted specific types of victims or operated within limited geographical zones, Ramirez struck anyone and anywhere. This randomness created widespread
Of
paranoia.
course it would.
Families who had never locked their doors began bolting windows. Gun sales skyrocketed. Security systems became a booming industry. Communities transformed their nightly routine. People slept with the lights on or in shifts, afraid to be unconscious in the dark. I would do the exact same thing if there was a serial killer
Definitely.
around our area.
Definitely.
It'd be shift sleeping.
There would be floodlights pointing every direction.
Oh, Laurie Strode's house. That's what we'd be living in.
Yeah, with our bunker under the
Oh,
hood.
yeah.
Where
With
would
the
we
kill
put
switch
it?
and everything. Police departments faced unprecedented pressure as Ramirez crisscrossed jurisdictions, forcing cooperation between agencies that rarely collaborated at the time. So he did some good.
What, forced cooperation.
They finally started working together. He forced the police departments to make amends.
But he would have had to. Would they have not to the police departments? Would they have had to cooperate with the FBI? Was he trans-state, cross-border?
Yeah, all in
All
California.
in California. Okay.
The case contributed to better information sharing practices across California law enforcement.
Pardon me.
On a cultural level, Ramirez embedded himself into California's true crime mythology. His image, gaunt, menacing, with sunken eyes and pentagrams, became one of the most recognizable faces of American serial killers. He shattered the illusion that crime follows patterns or rules. In many ways, the fear he generated left a lingering mark on the collective consciousness of Los Angeles. I mean, before you knew anything about true crime, before you knew anything about any of this shit, there was a certain handful, and there were 4 men you knew by name instantly. When somebody says, name a serial killer, you were instantly going to go Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer, Ramirez.
I would have went with Ted Bundy or Dahmer. I didn't know who Gacy was till I was in maybe my mid-teens. I'd always that picture of the Night Stalker in his leather jacket, the one where he's young and he kind of has his teeth. Yeah. I knew that went around, but I wouldn't have been able to put a name on him. But Bundy was my go-to.
I knew those 4 guys were the Mount Rushmore of serial killers in America. But even really, the funny thing about these guys is, and this is the truth, they are only known names because their crimes were crimes that the public could handle hearing. There are much worse serial killers out there. There are much more worse serial killers in America. There is much more scary serial killers in America, but those stories are too intense to be constantly repeated or made movies out of or shows out of and stuff like that. So these guys are the ones that they're basically the
And if we're being honest, a lot of their murders are pretty
watershed
fucking
approved
intense.
serial killers. So Richard Ramirez's story remains one of the starkest examples of how early trauma, unchecked psychopathy, I got it, and a symbolic ideology can merge into something monstrous. His crimes were brutal, his motivations disturbing, and his impact undeniable. The Night Stalker didn't just kill, he changed the way California viewed safety, vulnerability, and the sanctity of the home. And decades later, his name still evokes the terror of a summer when darkness felt alive. And what's crazy as well is when you're asking like why would they like name fucking D'Angelo the original Night Stalker when they already had a Night Stalker? The murders the original Night Stalker committed are very similar in a sense, where he was also attacking singles, couples, age didn't really matter a whole fucking pile. Sometimes, because obviously the East Area rapist side of him, sometimes it was rape, sometimes it was murder. I mean, the Golden State Killer really has 12 deaths to his name.
I think so.
But he's got 50 fucking rapes, 150 fucking burglaries, So I mean, it was just very similar in this. They are very similar fucking animals in it, but the only sense is the original Night Stalker liked to stay in the shadows.
Oh, he did.
Whereas Richard Ramirez said he liked to stay in the shadows, but at the same time should have been walking around with a big neon fucking sign.
Felt like he
saying,
thought he was a celebrity.
I'm the Night Stalker. So this guy, I mean, truly thought he was chosen by the devil to fucking cause this chaos.
Yeah.
And from someone who thought he was chosen by the devil to someone who thought he was chosen by God. Let's get into it.
Yes. So we're in the year 1985, and basically we're getting the ball rolling with Ernest Miller and what's known as the Eternal Purity Fellowship.
That's his little cult. Right?
Yes, yeah. So we're in 1985. Big hair, big sins, and even bigger moral panic. And smack in the middle of all that is Maxine Minx Miller, who's finally made the jump from doing dodgy skin flicks in barns with questionable hygiene to the higher end stuff. Proper sets, actual scripts, lighting that isn't just sunlight through a hole in the roof. Real cinematic pornography, if we're being fancy.
The type where they pretend the pizza delivery fella has emotional depth.
Exactly.
The type I don't actually like. I don't need a storyline for it. Just get into it.
I think the ones where women clearly aren't stuck head first in their washing machine are
Oh
hilarious.
my God, what is that about?
I don't
I
get
wouldn't
it.
mind, that's
I don't
rape.
get it. Oh yeah, exactly. So in her industry, Maxine was a star. People knew her. She worked constantly and she was respected in the adult film world. But that wasn't enough for her. The high-class porn star life wasn't the dream. It was the stepping stone. Because Maxine Miller, even back then, wasn't shy about telling anyone who'd listen that she was destined for Hollywood. Proper Hollywood. Cameras, carpets, credits. Not the blue movie version of those things. But now keep in mind, we're talking about the 80s. It wasn't exactly the warmest era for anyone to cross from adult entertainment into mainstream acting. Like studios had PR teams having heart attacks at the thought. Politicians crawling out of every corner worrying about moral decline. And parents writing angry letters because they saw too much shoulder on MTV.
It's kind of like, for them to transition over in the 90s, it was still, even when they were more popular, because you'd see them on wrestling and stuff like that. It was still for shock factor, because 90s TV was all about the shock factor. But they wouldn't be getting like a fucking role in the Titanic that year, that fucking decade.
No.
The low budget horror was the next stepping stone for anyone in that kind
Or
of business.
low budget Oscars.
Yeah, or porn, wrestling.
Okay.
Horror, and that's it. It was an era where even the suggestion of sex sent the censors into a nosebleed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Maxine was trying to go from X-rated to PG-13. Absolute uphill battle here.
Mm-hmm. But if there's one thing about Maxine Miller that's been consistently true since the day she was born, she's as stubborn as sin. Raised under her father Ernest Miller's religious boot, she'd fought her way out of control, out of shame, out of that cult-like purity nonsense. And the moment she got free, she locked her sights onto Hollywood like it was the promised land. And honestly, her story mirrors Pearl Douglas's in a lot of ways. Just a generation later, with society slightly more tolerant of women trying to carve out her own path without the permission of a husband or a father.
Yeah, Pearl ran so Maxine could do lines in a nightclub while yelling about stardom. Progress, baby.
Exactly.
And as we go along, you are going to see a lot more fucking parallels between the two, even down to heritage when we get into where Grandpa Miller was from. All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Well, it took Maxine some time. Auditions that went nowhere. Producers wouldn't even let her in the building because of her past. Doors closed in her face before she even touched the handle. But she kept grinding. And finally, she got a shot. An audition for The Puritan 2, a sequel people had been fighting to get made since the original back in 1980. And the director, Elizabeth Bender, who did the first film and was desperate for a second hit the second time around, watched Maxine's audition tape and championed her straight away. She fought back against studio pushback. She argued her corner, and she practically had to drag the producers into the room and force them to consider Maxine.
I've seen the audition tape myself, and look, she gave it everything. Total opposite of Pearl's dance audition, where the whole room saw a disaster. Maxine actually nails hers. Confident, emotional, present, proper actor stuff. She even managed to get some tears rolling on cue, which was a big thing.
Oh, it is, especially if you can cry from both eyes.
It was with two eyes, yeah.
Oh, cool. At the same time. Oh, talent. And because Bender had risked her neck for Maxine, this role suddenly became everything. Maxine's first real chance to prove what she'd been shouting at the world for years, that she wasn't just a porn star. She was a star, full stop. Her future was hinging on this, and the pressure wasn't just high, it was suffocating. But here's the thing. While Maxine was looking ahead to the bright lights and the premiere nights, something from her past was quietly crawling up behind her, ready to knock the whole dream sideways. A ghost from before the sequence, before the stardom, and before the stage name. And to understand what's about to hit her, we need to go back, way back, to the days before Maxine Miller was Maxine Minx, to a childhood spent under Ernest Miller's thumb, the early days of his Eternal Purity Fellowship.
Christian cult vibes before it was cool.
So before we get to the Maxine we know, the glamorous, coke-fueled, neon-soaked starlet of 1985, we need to wind the clock back all the way to the man who shaped her entire existence, Ernest Miller. Ernest was born in 1925 to strict fire and brimstone German Christian immigrants, the type of family where smiles were suspicious and joy meant you were probably sinning. His father, Hans Miller, or Miller, as Ellis Island decided he'd be called, was a preacher himself. And like many Irish families who got their surnames butchered on arrival, Muller became Miller because an American official couldn't be arsed sounding it out. I have Quinlan's that became Connelleens. Oh, it's not a hard name at all, but history's full of nonsense like that.
Over to you and they just lost their shit. It's like, what the fuck are we supposed to do with these?
Yeah.
Miller now. Like the beer, Miller Lite, go for it.
Miller Lite.
Imagine telling a fella called Sean O'Muraku, yeah, that's Murphyno, for our convenience. It's insulting, but it's also classic old America.
Imagine calling your Muller Corner yogurt a Miller Corner. It sounded like I was having alcoholic yogurt.
Oh, nice. Well, they both need to be fucking fermented.
I was just saying that's double fermentation. Well, how come I can't get drunk off my yogurt? So not much even is known about Ernest's childhood, except that they never stayed anywhere for long. His father took his preaching on the road, dragging the family from town to town like a travelling circus, if the circus had replaced clowns with fear-mongering sermons about hellfire. And Hans was one of these loud, pointy finger, the devil is behind every bush types of preachers. Everything was sin. Fun was sin, music was sin, wearing the wrong shoes on a Sunday was probably sin. Life in that house was only meant to be lived for God and God alone.
And here's where the parallels with Pearl Douglas shows up again. German roots, check. Hard work as devotion, check. Religion weaponized as like a sledgehammer, big old check. And hang on now. Let's just take a look back at the last few months of what we've discussed.
A lot of German roots.
Yeah. Pretty sure the Bates has had some in there. Fucking Geen. Augusta Geen was a fucking lunatic. You want to hear more about her? We're going to give you that for free in 2 weeks' time on Christmas
Day?
I'll tell you.
Christmas Eve.
The day after Christmas.
Yeah.
St. Stephen's Day, Boxing Day for you Brits. We will be, instead of putting out an episode because we're going to be hungover and full of fucking turkey, we're going to give you the 2-part on Ed Gein that we did on It's Live Action.
That's what
as one whole part.
Saturday. This Saturday,
It's Thursday. Thursday is when the live action comes out.
So that's not the day after Christmas. The day after Christmas Day is a Saturday this year.
No, it's not.
Yeah, Christmas Eve is a Thursday. Christmas Day is a Friday.
Well, look at that. What month was I fucking looking at?
Probably November.
All right, so on Christmas Day, you get to listen to Ed Gein stories.
It's a lie of Christmas Eve.
What a day.
Christmas Eve is the Thursday.
God damn it!
Get this right! We need to get
a
a
live
calendar
action
in
is
here.
usually out on a Thursday, and it's in a live action episode, and I know it's coming out on a Wednesday, it's already out, if you want to pay for it, but just wait, and in 2 weeks we'll give it to you for free. There,
on
like
Christmas
it plugged
Eve,
done.
which is a Thursday.
Yep, sure.
24th
problem.
of December before Josh.
Either way, German parents, stop being so harsh on your kids and fuck the religion out the door because they're only killing people afterwards.
Yeah.
Or starting religious cults.
So Ernest didn't just absorb his father's teachings, he worshipped Hans like he was God's right-hand man. And by 12 years old, Ernest had already become a youth pastor. 12. Like most kids at that age are worried about their homework and sweets, but Ernest was worried about the souls of children burning in eternal damnation. He swallowed every word of his father's fire and brimstone nonsense and held it close like scripture. The Bible to Ernest wasn't stories or allegories. It was a literal instruction manual, step by step. No interpretation, no nuance. And as he grew up, the devotion didn't mellow. It calcified. His disgust for society grew the same way rust takes over an old car. Slowly, steadily, and totally. By the time he reached adulthood, he was convinced the world was rotting. Every generation was filthier than the last. Every cultural shift, music, fashion, sexuality was proof that God's creation was sliding straight into hell.
Yeah, if Ernest could see today's world, huh? Porn in your pocket, pride flags everywhere, and half a TikTok walking around with their ass hanging out. The man was spontaneously combust. I love it.
He'd be a coronary wrapped in a stroke, wrapped in a meltdown, to be honest. And meanwhile, the rest of us are just living by mind your own business and let people be happy. Live and let live. So eventually, Ernest was paired, and I do mean paired, with a young woman named Mia. So calling it a marriage, that would imply choice. This was more of a spiritual, arranged matching scenario cooked up by Mia's parents and Ernest's father, Hans. Mia wasn't sold on the whole live for God and only God kind of lifestyle. She wanted normality, a house that didn't move every 2 months, a husband who had a regular job, kids who weren't raised backstage at revival meetings.
But this is 1950s America.
Mm-hmm.
Her opinion didn't count for much.
No.
Nothing at all, actually.
No.
And Ernest wasn't the type of man who considered his wife's thoughts equal to the Lord's word.
So they married in 1950, and then by mid-1951, Mia was pregnant with what would be her first and tragically her only child. The pregnancy was rough from the start. Severe complications, exhaustion, stress, and all of it made worse by Ernest's refusal to allow medication, doctors, or anything he considered interference with God's will.
God, one of those people.
Yep. And to that, add to that is the constant travel of Ernest roaming church, and the whole thing was just a disaster waiting to happen. And sadly, it did. In 1951, at just 21 years old, Mia died due to complications during childbirth. A young woman who wanted a normal life got none of it. She left behind a newborn daughter, a daughter Ernest Miller named Maxine Miller.
From day one, Maxine's life started with trauma and religious madness. No wonder she ran for the lights of Hollywood.
And with Mia gone, Ernest was left as a sole guardian and sole influence over the girl who would grow up to become Maxine. Well, that's with 3 X's. Yeah. And that is where things really start to twist. So by the time Ernest Miller found himself alone with baby Maxine, both of his parents were long gone. Pneumonia took his mother and a heart attack had claimed Hans, which ironically, it's the kind of thing Ernest would later use as a sermon example. The Lord taketh when we stray from his path. Convenient, considering Hans was literally preaching when he keeled over.
Yeah. People died younger back then. It just happened.
But it left Ernest untethered. And honestly, that's probably the worst thing that could have happened. With nobody above him to rein him in, Ernest stepped into the spotlight without hesitation. And he wasn't just assuming Hans' role as the main preacher. No, he was upgrading it. So Hans had been the classic travelling fire and brimstone showman. But in Ernest's mind, that wasn't enough. Hans was the man who ranted about sin till the walls sweated. Somehow still wasn't strict enough. That should really tell you everything. And he had a plan. Maxine, barely old enough to walk even, couldn't work either because she can't walk, would be moulded into his sidekick, his youth pastor, his little angel on stage beside him, or put more plainly, his prop. Because while Ernest worshipped his father, he also quietly resented him. He thought Hans lacked the conviction to truly save people. Ernest wanted more control, more obedience, more worship pointed in his direction. He didn't see himself as a preacher. He saw himself as a divine mouthpiece. I find that really narcissistic. A chosen messenger. A man whose every whim came pre-blessed by God himself.
Like the Pope.
Like the Pope.
So the Pope a narcissist?
No, the Pope had to be elected. The Pope didn't just go...
By more people who thought that they might be the voice of God.
Yeah, I know that you got about 50 people in that room who all think that they could be the voice of God, but...
So 50 narcissists in a room.
And I'm pretty sure you can vote for yourself.
Only one will leave.
Oh.
That's how we decide the next
sword.
Pope. That is how we decide the next Pope. Battle to the death.
Hi. There can only be one. Only if like a queen
Then
ship
you
it
send
out.
Raid out the fucking chimney. We found a new Pope. Raid with them. Because you know they put the chimney, they put the smoke.
Yeah.
Raid with the blood of his enemies.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, Maxine was paraded around like a holy sideshow act, singing hymns and doing cutesy routines while Ernest passed the collection plate. All very wholesome looking if you didn't see the cash sliding into his pockets instead of any charity box. Maxine genuinely loved performing. Like, that bit was real, but the stage she wanted was far from a dusty church tent. Something in her, something inherited from Mia, tilted towards the glitter of Hollywood rather than the glare of the pulpit. But Ernest saw her dreams as rebellion. Actually, no, he saw them as blasphemy. Like celebrities, sinful, movies, satanic, magazines, tools of the devil. And anytime Maxine so much as mentioned them, Ernest's belt came off like it was a reflex.
Every time we cover these parent-child religious horror stories, I swear it's like a bingo card. Fear of modernity.
Modernity.
Check. God taught me to. Check. Beat the creativity out of my child. Full house. You win.
And that belt, it wasn't the end of it. As Maxine entered her teens and her interest in performing grew stronger, so did Ernest's fury. She started sneaking out to meet local boys like it wasn't anything wild, just normal teenage exploration, but Ernest wasn't having it. Any attempt at independence became proof that she was slipping further from God's path.
Is this like the ultimate fucking validation for the whole, if you tell your daughter not to date that guy, she's definitely going to date that guy? Because it was like, don't go near any men, porn star.
Men everywhere.
You know?
Yeah. So the punishments escalated and eventually Maxine was being tied down at night, and that's not metaphorically. Literally restrained like a prisoner. And the situations like that have a ticking clock on them. So she tried to escape a few times, but Ernest had loyal followers. They'd scoop her up along the roadside and deliver her back like a runaway church property. To be honest, if I had been scooped up more than once and I was like Maxine, I would have had no problem with something in my backpack. You can walk anywhere closer, I am hitting you with this bat. Because who's scooping her up unless they have a whole... Yeah, I forgot I have teeth and nails. And I'm a girl, so it doesn't look bad if I use them. But turning 18 changed everything. So she could finally disappear without anyone having legal standing to drag her home. So she planned properly. And this time she had help. A local lad, the kind she'd been sneaking out to see, had a battered old VW van. They sorted out a date, a route, and the whole getaway. And when the moment came, Maxine was in that van, speeding toward freedom before Ernest even had a time to work himself into a sermon about it. By the time he realized that she was gone, she was miles away. But Maxine was smart. and the vanish had to be clean. So once she was far enough away even, she ditched the lad, nicely mind you, and hopped on a bus to Dallas to disappear entirely.
I'm sure nicely, yeah. Fucking, I got you all this way, now you're going to leave me, huh?
Yep.
Sound. Thanks.
Not even going to flash it. And that's where life hit her hard and fast. No home, no friends, no safety net, just survival. For a little while, she fell into sex work to pay for food and a place to sleep. And it wasn't glamorous, but it did keep her alive until she found her footing. And in Dallas, thanks to all those years of being forced to dance for Ernest's flock, she had a skill she could use. So she ended up in a strip club. Thanks, Daddy.
Awesome.
There she could perform on her terms for the first time in her life. And that's where everything changed.
I'd have to imagine. I mean, obviously as a man, I've never got to dance in a strip club, but I have to imagine that, especially if you're coming from that very uptight religiousness, it's got to be very freeing to be able to just rip your fucking clothes off and dance around like no one's watching while people throw money at you.
I follow a woman online that used to be Amish, and then she left and she became a stripper, and she kind of has the same kind of view as you do. It's just how freeing that the whole thing was. I mean, like, she couldn't even wear her hair down or uncovered as an Amish person.
And when you're done having fun dancing around naked, you get to pick up like thousands of dollars and walk off stage.
I have seen other girls, though, having to wash their dollars.
Oh, well, yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's not exactly like... yeah, I get that, but still.
I think I'd be happier with coins rather than paper money.
Could you not just bag it all up and bring it to the bank and let them worry about it?
That's true, but I suppose you want to count it as well. And then when you bring in money to the bank, you have to have it pre-counted out.
Then wear a set of gloves while you fucking count it.
No, that's true.
Just saying,
that's
there's
true.
easier ways than washing money. Weirdest case of money laundering I've ever come across.
Literally laundering it.
Right.
I wonder what detergent she used.
So this is where she meets our charming grifter, Wayne Gilroy.
Yes, and that's when everything changed. So that club had a manager, as you said, a charming grifter named Wayne Gilroy. Flexible morals, big dreams, and an eye for talent.
That's only funny to me now. By the time fucking last week's episode was left, he didn't have an eye for talent no more.
Absolutely not. So he and Maxine got together and fell into that messy mix of romance and ambition, and eventually got engaged. And Wayne had grand visions, not for Hollywood, but for pornography. And from there, well, that's where last week's episode picked up, where Maxine's climb toward fame in the 1980s truly began.
And thank God for that, because if she stayed with Ernest, her life would have looked a lot less like Showgirls and a lot more like Midsummer.
Midsummer works out okay for the girls.
I've never seen it.
Neither have I, but I know that much.
I just knew it was a culty kind of fucking...
Oh, it is culty.
God, I should have went with Wicker Man.
Okay, I got it. Her life would have looked a lot less like Showgirls and a lot more like Wicker Man. Did it.
Got it. Edit. Done.
So while Maxine was off rebuilding herself in the world of the 80s pornography, climbing the ladder from the grimy backrooms to proper on-camera stardom, Ernest didn't fade away. Quite the opposite. Her disappearance became his favourite sermon topic. And instead of disowning her, which you'd think would be the natural move for a man obsessed with purity, he weaponized her.
His message, even I, the Lord's chosen messenger, couldn't keep my daughter from Satan's grasp.
It was a martyrdom with a sprinkling of ego. So he paraded his childhood photos of little angel face Maxine across his sermons, holding them up like tragic relics. If someone as good, pure, and obedient as his daughter could be taken by Hollywood sin, then nobody was safe.
Classic televangelist playbook. Feel sorry for me, then put your money where the pity is.
Exactly. He spun her escape into a propaganda machine, and don't think for a second Ernest didn't know exactly what Maxine was up to. He wasn't an idiot, he was just mad. He figured out her career path pretty quickly and then folded neatly into his crusade.
That is like the worst mix as well. Like when people mix up the fact that like when they think crazy people have to have low IQs, and it's like, that's not necessarily the case in most cases. Again, Ted Bundy could have been a solicitor if he wanted. Could have been a lawyer if he wanted to. The judge that sentenced him to death fucking praised his ability in the courtroom.
He had the air of like a district attorney off.
Just because you're crazy doesn't make you a dum-dum.
No. But the more Ernest ranted about her fall into corruption, the more emboldened his followers became. What had been a typical travelling church troupe, tents, hymn books, and a dodgy PA system was morphing into something far darker.
Ernest becomes more radical. His flock becomes more loyal, and that's when the cash come in. And once the cash comes in, it's a cult.
It's hard to stop, I would think.
No. Listen to me, people. When they start asking you for your money, it is a cult.
Do you know what I noticed?
There is no God that requires currency. They can't spend it down here.
When we were younger, they used to pass around the plate at Mass. I don't see them do that anymore.
That's because we don't go to Mass.
But I've been there 2 weeks in a row in the last month and they didn't pass it around. They only had the church gate collections.
Do you remember back in the day when they used to send it around a second time?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember when they stopped letting people go down and shoving it in your face and you to pass it around? I'd say they had to do that because people were obviously keeping track in their head of, okay, that person didn't pay when I handed it to her. That person didn't pay when I handed it to him. Of course, it had to be anonymous. Anonymous. Yes. So Ernest convinced him that he was a modern prophet, the new Messiah, and they bought it. Hook, line, and collection plate. They volunteered their money, their labor, and in some cases, their entire families. Very culty. All for Ernest's divine crusade.
This is our second Messiah of the year.
Humperdoo?
Third Messiah of the year. Because didn't Klaus Star, well, he was going to use Jesse Custard as a Messiah. He wasn't.
He was,
Messiah.
yeah. Is Humperdoo a Messiah or is he just a child?
If we are to believe the story we told, which again we obviously said was a conspiracy, so we don't know how much of it's true or not, then technically he was the
descendant of the Messiah.
Descendant of Christ, yeah.
Okay.
So where were we? So the money and labor, yeah. So that money, it went places because Ernest used the money he had been making through the cult to hire a private investigator, a man named John Labatt, who might honestly be the biggest moral contradiction Ernest ever indulged in.
Labatt was less detective noir and more human grease stain. He had the vibe of a bloke who showered only when threatened with a hose. And if Ernest was preaching purity, hiring Labatt was like outsourcing to a sewer rat.
I mean, imagine Ernest justifying this one to God. Yes, Lord, I needed a PI, but only the most disgusting one available. I suppose he could really justify it, couldn't he? He was like, well, I saw all these very religious, nice PIs, but I didn't want them to filthy their eyes with the sin that I had to have them investigate so that I could take the devil down for you.
That's the excuse he used.
See, I could talk my way around God.
And Labatt made his living even spying on Maxine from city to city. From Dallas, the Powder Keg Farm, Hollywood, anywhere Maxine went, Labatt was somewhere behind a lamppost, smoking something questionable and scribbling in a filthy notebook. Ernest paid him handsomely to keep tabs on every part of Maxine's life, her career, her friends, her movements, her secrets. And Labatt documented everything, not because he cared, because he was getting paid a fortune by a man convinced he was fighting Satan $1 at a time. Eventually, Ernest knew the moment would come. The moment to make his move and to turn Maxine's life into the centerpiece of one of his moral crusades. But first, he needed to get something else. The right cultural climate.
Enter the rising tide of satanic panic. The tabloids were frothing. Parents were terrified. Every crime, every rumor, every shadow was blamed on demons, cults, or the nearest convenient scapegoat. The one fucking thing I will say here, and it's something I have said time and time again, right? Sometimes, whereas I don't agree with their beliefs, sometimes I am, what's the word I'm looking for? Impressed by their devotion to the literal beliefs they have, right? So, like, if you're going to be a Christian, I get it then why you don't like fucking gays, trans, all this kind of stuff. because you misinterpreted your book to believe this, but since you believe this, you actually follow your belief system and you don't make allowances for it to splinter off.
But it still doesn't make you a good person just
No,
because
no,
you
no, no,
stick
no,
to
no,
your
no, no,
beliefs.
no, because you've still just taken a fucking stupid book written by a man by men 2,000 years ago, claiming that it was written by a messiah.
And took out all the parts
I
written
need
by
to
women.
literally have God come down from the heavens and say, "Here's a rule book, follow it." Then I'll follow it. But until that day happens, go fuck yourself. But what I'm saying is, he, unlike other cults, most other cults, 99.9% of other cults, would bleed their congregation dry of money and then rearrange all the marriages so that all the men have sex with nobody and all the women have sex with
the
them.
cult leader, like in
So he was truly...
Waco. That's what I was thinking of. It was Waco I was thinking of.
Applegate was one of the only ones that didn't do it, and that was because
He was a bit doolally, was he?
I'm pretty sure he might have been gay. I think he was closeted gay or else asexual. Marshall Applegate or Applewhite?
Applewhite's one of them, but I think we mentioned this, that he was gay.
But he was rather gay or asexual. One of the two.
Maybe asexual.
But so that took that fucking subject out of the fucking equation. But most of them, and it's one thing that this man actually hasn't been accused of. So,
maybe he does have a few convictions.
No, but he believes in what he's in the shite he's talking. And just because you believe in it doesn't make it right.
That's true.
That's
true. So Richard Ramirez was active at this time. The Night Stalker headlines were everywhere. California was terrified, and Ernest saw opportunity in the fear, and he leaned into it hard. Every sermon became a warning. The devil was here now, and here in America, stalking the innocent, corrupting the youth, killing the pure. And while Ramirez's crimes gripped the nation, Ernest fed his audience a buffet of moral hysteria, and all while sitting on a goldmine of dirt about his own daughter. Maxine didn't know the details yet, but she wasn't stupid. She could feel it. The sense of being watched, the whispers, the sudden leaks, little bits of her past from Powder Keg Farm popping up where they shouldn't. The awful truth was circling her, slow at first and then faster. And she knew, even before she saw Labatt's greasy silhouette, who was behind it. Her dirty little secrets were being cracked open. First, a few drops, then hints of a coming flood. Rumors of an expose, of buried bodies, of a massacre in Texas that the world almost forgot.
And of course, Ernest would time it perfectly. Wait till she's about to be famous, then pull the rug out just to prove a point for his sermons. The man would sell his own shadow if it made him look holier.
Absolutely. Maxine could feel the walls closing in long before Labatt ever approached her. And this storm just beginning would collide head on with her new Hollywood career, putting everything she'd worked for at risk.
You'd think California already had enough to panic about with Richard Ramirez roaming around, the Night Stalker. The newspapers screaming murder every morning, parents barricading their doors like the apocalypse was scheduled for Tuesday. But no, for Ernest Miller, that wasn't enough moral catastrophe. We could turn it up to 11 over here.
We can. So he watched the fear swell across the country and saw it the way a shark sees blood in the water. And rather than let Ramirez's reign of terror dominate the headlines, he decided to make his own contribution. Because while the world believed Ramirez was responsible for nearly 30 murders at the time, the truth, the ugly, festering truth, was that about 15 of those killings were actually committed by Ramirez. The rest, a clean dozen, they were Ernest's work.
A very holy dozen. Nothing says devotion like murder, apparently.
Exactly. And for a man preaching purity, Ernest had a very hands-on relationship with sin. And what made it even worse was the pattern. Ramirez was known for being chaotic. As you said, random victims, random places, chaotic brutality. But Ernest wasn't random. He wasn't impulsive. He wasn't deliberate. And his targets were chosen by chance. He
was deliberate. He
weren't chosen by chance. Pardon me.
He knew what he was doing.
You sure? I'm joking. So he went after women he considered morally decayed. Women who embodied the freedom, sexuality, and independence he loathed. Women, in other words, a lot like Maxine. And it didn't take long for Maxine to spot it.
Funny enough, this is the same type of women I used to chase when I was single.
Freedom, sexuality, and independence.
Morally decayed.
Oh.
Then I met you.
And I'm clearly not morally decayed. Dirty fucking mouth.
Anyway, she was deep into Hollywood's nightlife at this point, or at least adjacent to it. And as she prepared for the Puritan 2, she was keeping her head down, staying focused. Producers were having those big Hollywood Hills parties, the kind with pools, neon lights, mountains of cocaine, and movie executives sliding around like greased eels. Her friends in the industry would invite her along. That's the porno industry she was still involved in. Maxine, come on up to the hills tonight. Big producers party, networking, drinks, and a bit of crack. Come on, let's go.
The Americans really tell her there'd be a bit of crack.
Nah.
Well, not
what
the
crack they were talking
CRAIC crack.
Not our crack, their crack. No, I didn't say nothing about crack. They were just a bit of crack. Bit of fun.
But Maxine was laser focused. New role, new life, no distractions. So she'd politely turned them down. And then, days later, she'd hear the news. Another woman dead, another body found, another name she recognized. Friends, colleagues, women she'd shared stages with, makeup rooms, cigarettes, laughs, gone.
Imagine that. You skip one Hollywood party and suddenly it becomes a true crime headline. The 80s were truly a wild, wild time.
I'd be fucking
Not
traumatized.
that wild. What?
I'd be traumatized. If I skipped that party and then I found out that women ended up dead from that party, I'd be like, I'm never going to another party again. Not going there was a good choice last night.
Like Seth MacFarlane in 9/11.
Yeah. To see fly, that would give me the fear of God as well if I just missed it.
I've never looked it up, but he was definitely supposed to be on one of the planes that flew into the towers, except he overslept or he was hungover and overslept or something along those fucking lines and he missed his flight.
Jesus.
And then his flight missed its destination.
Thank God for that. So Ernest wasn't all that wild. Ernest made it wild in the 80s, basically, because he'd been tracking Maxine's circle. Labatt's reports kept him fed with information, who she worked with, who she hung around with, and which producers she might meet. Ernest saw every woman near Maxine as a potential infection point, a corrupting influence, and a threat to his holy narrative.
So he starts eliminating them quietly, brutally, and then letting Ramirez take the blame, perfectly hidden in the chaos of the Night Stalker spree.
And do you know what the awful thing was?
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
Yep.
The press attributed the killings to Ramirez. The police lumped them together, and Ernest's kills became swallowed by the hysteria of the decade. But Maxine was not blind. She recognized the pattern in a way the cops never could, because the pattern was personal. It encircled her life and it traced her footsteps. It hunted the people closest to her. Her father's shadows, the same shadow she ran from in a VW van, had stretched all the way to Hollywood, and bodies were falling inside of it.
And here's the kicker. She still had no idea how far Ernest was willing to go.
Nope.
Ramirez wasn't her biggest threat. The man sitting in a neon pentagram on an evening news was basically a cover story.
Mm-hmm.
The real danger was wearing a preacher's suit and sermonizing into a microphone.
Surprise, surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And Maxine's instincts told her something terrifying. These weren't accidents. These weren't Ramirez even. These were messages. Warnings aimed at her without her name on them. And the closer the Puritan 2 came to production, the closer Ernest's holy war crept toward her career, her life, and everyone around her.
At this point, you're probably wondering how the police managed to get this tangled up. How they couldn't tell the difference between the Night Stalker's crime scenes and Ernest Miller's holy hell murder art installations.
Honestly, it all comes back to the same thing. 1980s satanic panic.
And if you want to know more about that, flick on back a few episodes of It's a Live Action, which comes out on Thursdays, but next week, we're not going to get into that again.
See,
it comes out on
Mickey
Thursdays. You can
says.
find it on It's a Live Action. We talk all about satanic panic there on one of the episodes.
So back then in the 80s, the entire country was one tabloid headline away from performing an exorcism on their toaster, basically. Anything spooky, violent, or remotely edgy got slapped with a pentagram and thrown on the Satan did it pile. And Ramirez absolutely fed into that. He left his victims where they fell. He scrawled pentagrams on walls. He shouted things like, "Hail Satan," or "Don't swear to God, swear to Satan," at terrified survivors. So when another killer, Ernest, began carving pentagrams and staging bodies, well, the cops basically went, sure, look, it must be all the same lad.
To be fair, California barely wanted to admit they had one satanic killer.
Cops don't want to own up to that at all. No.
2 would have made them pack up the whole state and move it somewhere safer.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not a bad idea.
And technically, there weren't 2 satanic killers because only one of them actually believed in Satan. Ramirez was sincere in his madness. Ernest, meanwhile, was using satanic imagery like a stage prop while privately thinking he was God's special little avenger. But among the chaos, there were 2 detectives who weren't buying the official story. Detective Michelle Williams and Detective Bobby Torres. They saw differences immediately. Ramirez's scenes were frenzied, messy, and impulsive. Ernest's were carefully arranged, posed, and theatrical. Post-mortem mutilations, ritualized staging, and deliberate symbolism. 2 killers. Clear as day, but just not clear to their bosses.
Well, I mean, like, for one, I don't think I remember any scene where Ramirez removed the body from the place he killed them. I don't think he ever took them from a house. I don't think he ever staged them anywhere. I think it was
Just
basically
kill and went.
they'd move on to the next one. So if the higher ups had listened to even one episode of this podcast, we'd have solved this case sooner.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep.
You know? Use us. We're a tool. We can help
Speak
you.
for yourself. Williams and Torres began noticing something else too. A link between the stage victims and a rising Hollywood star, Maxine Minx Miller. Names kept circling back to her social circles. Women she knew, women in her orbit, and women Ernest considered corruptive influences. So they tracked her down to ask her what she knew. But before they could get to her, Maxine got a package. Just a VHS tape inside labelled as police evidence, which told her straight away how deep Ernest's fingers reached into places they shouldn't be. Ew. She popped the VHS into the player, and suddenly the farmer's daughter flashed onto the screen. Queued up to her scene, the one with Jackson Hole, the one we talked about last week. The scene where she gave a little extra showmanship for her unexpected elderly audience, including in the Peeping Pearl. Having that tape in her living room was like finding a loaded gun pointed at her future.
Peeping Pearl. Sounds like something you could call fucking clitoris.
I was just thinking that.
The Peeping Pearl. Find the Peeping Pearl and all your wishes will come true.
That's actually kind of funny because a clam is another word for your vagina, isn't
Yeah.
it? The part of the clam. Yeah, that's disgusting. Attached was a message telling her to meet John Labatt, Ernest's pet sleazebag, at a restaurant, and so she went. And Labatt, with all the charm of a damp cigarette, laid it out. Ernest wanted a meeting, and if Maxine refused, he'd leak the tape. Public humiliation, career destruction, all wrapped in God's love, of course. Maxine being Maxine, she told him exactly where to shove his tape and walked out.
Fair play there.
Mhm.
If there's anything stronger than her willpower, it's her ability to tell a creep to piss off.
Yep. But when she got home, another tape was waiting, and this one wasn't a threat. This one was horror. It started with the footage of her friends, the ones who invited her to the Hollywood Hills party, sprinting for their lives, panicked, screaming, being chased by masked men, even. It's really hard to keep up with Maxine the whole time, and then you get masked. Then there was a cut. So suddenly the women were tied up in what looked like a cheap hotel room, sobbing, begging, terrified. And one of them was dragged into another room. We don't see what happens, but we hear it. The pleading, the screaming, the violence behind the wall. And the next morning, the bodies of Amber James and Tabby Martin were found near a graveyard. Hog-tied, mutilated, marked with satanic symbols carved into their skin. So this wasn't Ramirez. This wasn't random. And it wasn't a warning. It was a declaration from Ernest directed straight at Maxine.
Because these were close friends of Maxine, or colleagues, people she worked with.
Absolutely.
And now the game wasn't just personal, it was escalating rapidly. Or now the game was getting personal. I mean, this was getting dangerous for Maxine.
It was.
I mean, she knew, she could feel it. She knew, she had to know it. Well, she did know at this stage. She'd spoken to the back. So now she knows what her father's capable of doing.
Yeah.
Got to ramp shit up a little bit for her.
Exactly. And if Maxine was furious before, What came next pushed her straight past rage and into that cold, clinical place where revenge starts to look like a career strategy. She wasn't going to the cops. She wasn't hiding. She was going on the offensive. And the first step, bringing in someone she actually trusted, Leon Green. Leon wasn't Hollywood. He wasn't a producer or a director or some sex pest agent with a casting couch and half a conscience. He worked downstairs at the video store under Maxine's apartment, like a pure film geek. He lived and breathed movies. The kind of fella who could tell you which Italian giallo director used what brand of fake blood by taste alone. And Maxine knew if anyone could trace the origin of the cursed VHS tape being used to psychologically torture her, it was Leon.
He's the kind of lad where, that we'd all have been mates with. Our kind would have been mates with.
Yeah,
he knows every frame of cinema ever made. No social skills, terrifyingly organised, alphabetised shelves. The type who gets genuinely offended when someone calls The Thing a remake.
While Leon got to work, Maxine threw herself back into filming The Puritan. And that's where she met the franchise queen herself, Molly Bennett. Old school screen queen, the kind of woman who survived the 70s and 80s horror circuit with only moderate emotional scarring. Molly saw Spender's directorial tantrums immediately and tried to mentor Maxine a bit. Shared war stories, gave her survival tips, and then as a bit of a peace offering, she invited Maxine to a party in the Hollywood Hills. Big producer, big opportunity, and a big chance to make connections. Maxine turned it down. Again, she had lines to learn and mysteries to unravel and dead friends to avenge.
And also, come on. I mean, how did Maxine not call this one at this point? You know? She had to see it coming.
Oh,
we know the
yeah,
party invite is basically the kiss of death in this film. The people involved in this film or involved with Maxine in general. Come to the Hollywood Hills, she says. It'll be a good crack. She says, no, it won't, Molly. You're all going to fucking die.
Yep.
It's going to turn into a crime scene. The last women that went to this Hollywood party are now hogtied in the graveyard. With satanic shit written all over them.
Well, that's exactly what happened. It was turned into a crime spree. Maxine would later find Molly's remains at her father's compound. Dismembered, staged like a messed up homage to how her character was supposed to die in The Puritan too. Because Ernest just had to make it cinematic. And as if killing colleagues wasn't enough, Ernest set his sights on Leon next. Leon. Sweet, awkward Leon. Maxine's closest friend and the only person helping her, and the only person in this whole nightmare who didn't want anything from her. To Ernest, Leon was two things. One, someone poking his nose where it didn't belong. And two, a gay man, walking target in Ernest's twisted, holy worldview.
Yeah. Because if he didn't like her having porn friends, he definitely wasn't going to like her having a gay best friend.
No. So Leon was found butchered, his nape and eye slashed, his arm pierced, backstabbed again and again. It was a punishment killing, a warning, a message.
And that's where Maxine snaps. Properly snaps. Like fucking back in Powder Keg Farm fucking snaps, running over people's head snaps. Not the dramatic fainting a coach Hollywood starlet version. I mean, real righteous fucking fury. Leon was her last bit of family, her anchor, and Ernest took him away just to get to her. That's when Maxine realizes she can't outrun this anymore. You can't ignore it. You can't no comment your way out of this one. There's only one ending now, and she is going to have to write it herself. And it's a very similar ending to the way it ended when she was on Powder Keg Farm.
Yep. So she'd have to rewrite it for her life, for her future, but most importantly, in her eyes, for her career.
Yeah, one strange note here. Remember John Labatt that we were talking about, the little weasel who facilitated half of Ernest's torment campaign? Well, he disappears after this. And not lurking off screen disappears. I mean, vanishes, gone. No body, no suitcase, no shadow, no nothing. Hollywood has missing persons, but this man's Houdini himself off the map. Suspicious doesn't even begin to cover it.
No. So before he evaporated into thin air, though, he gave Maxine the address to the Miller compound, and that was it. Maxine wasn't waiting. She was marching straight in, ready to end the psychological torture, career sabotage, and general holy bullshit once and for all. But the only problem? she was being tailed. Detective Torres and Williams, still convinced Maxine was somehow tangled up in Leon Green's death, followed her right out to the hills. Maxine arrived at the compound, a mansion built like a cult brochure, and there in his office, she found Ernest, watching old tapes of himself training her as a child. 8 years old, wooden cross, Bible verses, drills, like some deranged priest doing PE. He looked at her and said it like he'd just predicted the weather. I knew you'd come.
So that's where Broken Matt Hardy got it from. Brother Nero, I knew you'd come.
Yeah. Ernest told her he'd come home to take her home. That Hollywood had corrupted her. That the industry was run by Satanists spreading sex, drugs, perversion, and the usual fundamentalist bingo cards.
Well, that's why we all like that industry.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And then he unveiled his masterpiece of crazy. He was making a film, a holy film, a recorded exorcism starring Maxine to prove that the devil could be cast out through the righteous will of God. She wasn't just his daughter, she was the climax of his movie. Then he revealed Molly Bennett's corpse, mutilated and staged like a prop. While Maxine reeled in shock, Ernest grabbed her from behind and slipped a plastic bag over her head. She fought, but the world went black. And when Maxine woke up, she was tied to a palm tree in the center of a pool. Around her, boom mics, film lights, cameras, and roughly 20 cult members in white robes and masks. Ernest himself in black, preaching fire and brimstone like a man auditioning for satanic Eurovision.
Do we need to call it satanic Eurovision? I think it's pretty obvious that competition thrives off of evil, violent, demented entrance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the robes, it's always robes, isn't it? If you're at a party and people start putting on identical robes, leave. Doesn't matter the context. Just get up and walk the fuck out.
So before Ernest could begin his big ritual take, gunshots tore through the compound. Detectives William and Torres had entered the property early. No backup, no plan, just vibes and a growing sense that Maxine was in trouble. And they were right. The cult opened fire, spraying bullets everywhere except where they meant to. Torres and Williams took them down one by one with actual competence.
Yeah, from what I've heard, the cult shot pretty much like
the
stormtroopers.
Stormtroopers. I want to call them Death Stalkers.
From what I heard, they actually took out more of their own selves than fucking got
Stormtroopers are
these cult members that when firing, there was more friendly fire than there was actually hitting anywhere near the wall that the cops were hiding behind.
Silly cult. So in the chaos, Ernest did what all good villains do. He legged it uphill toward the Hollywood sign. Maxine freed herself from the palm tree, grabbed a fallen gun, and then ran after him. This wasn't justice anymore. It was personal. She bolted up the hill, driven by pure fury. Halfway up, she found Torres, shot and dying against the base of the sign. He didn't make it. More gunshots echoed. Maxine pushed on and found Williams stumbling, a crucifix jammed in her eye socket. Mm-hmm. She collapsed over the hillside, but not before choking out, "I told you I'd get him." And she had. She'd hit Ernest, just not fatally. Maxine reached the clearing and Ernest Miller lay on the grass, bleeding out, spotlighted by the police helicopter overheard like some biblical stage production, overhead even. He looked at her and said,
"I did it all for you. Tried giving you what you wanted, to be like your daddy. But I failed. I created a monster. Forgive me. Failing a child is the greatest sin of all."
You'd make a good preacher with an accent like that. So the helicopter lights brightened. Dust swirled and Maxine stood over him, done with manipulation, the guilt and the madness. Ernest looked up with one last delusional flourish.
"You're a vision in this life. A beautiful, shining star." He really picked the wrong actress for a redemption arc.
Aha. Maxine raised the gun, put it to his head, and pulled the trigger.
Kaboom!
Bye-bye, Ernest.
Ernest was everywhere. It's kind of cool.
No, now he's like God.
But it is kind of cool that this all happens at the Hollywood sign and Hollywood Hinge. Like this kind of wrapping it up, getting it there,
full circle.
All the way to the Hollywood Hills, to the Hollywood sign where she finally gets rid of her past. So here's the part nobody in Hollywood wants to talk about, the cleanup. Because once Ernest Miller's brains were fertilizing the hillside, the LAPD swarmed that compound, and every skeleton Maxine had spent years running from finally clawed their way into the light. You've heard of the Epstein files. The fucking Miller files were just as big in the 80s at the time. And yet, Maxine walked away from it all. Why?
Because taking down 3 of the most deranged killers in American history buys you a mountain of legal grace. Turns out the justice system becomes very forgiving when you single-handedly end a satanic killing spree, dismantle a cult, and solve half of California's cold cases before breakfast. And the public opinion? They worshipped her. The porn star turned actress turned final girl who survived not 1 but 2 real-life slasher sagas and came out the victorious blood-streaked heroine. It was a PR fantasy. Studios would have sold their own grandparents for that kind of iconography. Enter Teddy Knight, her Hollywood fixer, a man who could make homicide sound like a parking violation. He brokered a deal with the DA. Full immunity for full confession. Every detail, every tape, every crime she witnessed or escaped, she handed it over. And he packaged it up like an Oscar campaign. And somehow it worked. Maxine didn't just survive, she soared. She finished the Puritan 2 like none of this interrupted her schedule and went on to stack over 100 credits in the horror genre. Slashers, psychological thrillers, anthology pieces. If there was a scream involved, Maxine was there to cash the check. And she even played herself and Pearl in the film adaptations of the best-selling books inspired by her real life. Pearl, X, and Maxine.
Meta doesn't even begin to cover it.
Yeah. These days, Maxine lives entirely off the rights to her legacy. Conventions, panels, documentary interviews, appearances that sell out quicker than Elvis memorabilia. She's also a heavyweight horror producer, the kind of name that can greenlight a film with a single nod.
And in the ultimate power move, she lives in Ernest's old compound. Redecorated top to bottom, of course. All the crosses dumped, all the religious rot wiped clean. What once was a cult fortress is now the home of a horror queen.
Maxine never married, and she never had kids. She didn't need to. Her career was always her heartbeat, her lifeline, and her purpose. And that hasn't changed now, even as she approaches her 74th birthday.
And honestly, imagine trying to tell Maxine Miller to settle down and live quietly. You'd have gotten shot before you finished the sentence.
Exactly. And that's the story of Maxine Minx Miller, preacher's daughter, dancer, sex symbol, survivor, star. She carved her own path. And if that meant going through cultists, killers, and Hollywood sleazebags, well, she carved anyway. A true Hollywood legend. A blueprint for women who refuse to be told no. Proof that even homicidal maniacs can't stop you grabbing the world by the balls and taking what's yours.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
A happy ending to a wild fucking 3-part story that started in 1920s rural Texas.
Well, yeah, that's true. I've enjoyed this season, though.
Oh, fuck.
What, this season? This series.
Yeah, these 3 stories. They're fun stories. They're crazy stories. They're wild stories. They reignited my love of the Sawyer clan's fucking story, too. And that's going to come up really early in the new year for us this time.
You're going to be
retelling it. Because I realized, you know what? We actually did the Sawyers on episode 6 or 7 of this show.
Did we?
Yeah. So the mic quality is going to be terrible.
Well, it's going to be better now when we record it.
From that episode. And I love that story so much. I just want to make some tweaks to it of stuff that I've learned over the years and kind of do it in the way we do it now. And because, I mean, we've changed, we've evolved over time. I mean, originally I was kind of the narrator of the show, and then we switched over to you being the narrator of the show, and I was narrating back then. So it'll be nice to kind of twist things up. It didn't give me a chance to say as much as I wanted to say about the family itself.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have a bit of fun with that. And what was a 2-parter would probably end up being like fucking 3 or 4 parts by the time we're done talking about these psychopaths. But they're like, I don't know, sometime it'll happen. January or February, it'll be ready to go. I'm not
Oh,
committing
are we
to
getting
anything.
new information? New
I am not
tidbits?
committing to anything because we've made that mistake so many times before.
I actually made a mental note of actually meaning to tell you, like in the last few weeks, stop committing to stuff because we keep having to change, choppy changey sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we can commit to the next few weeks at least because we're going to pre-record everything so that you can listen to it over Christmas. Next week, we are definitely 100% coming in hard with Christmas as we talk about... What's that guy's first name again? Billy. Billy Letts. Billy Letts. Because we realised that if you're called Billy and you might have a psychotic problem, especially around Christmas.
Yeah.
But that's not going to make sense to you till next Christmas when we talk about a different Billy. Also, this week we have, obviously we have Celebrity Rap Sheet and Playing with Bones. We're taking a little break from new episodes for the next couple of weeks, and we will be releasing season 1 of both shows again weekly, free for you to test out before you move on. I think Aimee has 4 or 5 seasons of Playing with Bones up there now. I have 2 seasons of Celebrity Rap Sheet with a 3rd one ready to record.
Sure do.
So we will we're going to give you a taste of some freebies before we get there. We also have the Ed Gein freebie coming up on Christmas Eve on the live feed instead of a regular episode, so that we can take a little break and be back the week after with a killer that called himself New Year's Evil.
He actually called himself New Year's Evil. That's a terrible
Well, mainly he used to say, "You can call me evil." That's the way he used to say it on the phone. But it was on New Year's, and the whole massacre got kind of fucking called the New Year's Evil Massacre.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing that at the end of the year before we come in hot with the start of the year, talking about something called the Poughkeepsie Tapes, which is an unsolved killing spree.
Every time I hear the word Poughkeepsie, I just think of Van Hesh in Ally McBeal because she had Tourette's in it. I think pretty sure it was Tourette's, but her Twitch was Poughkeepsie.
Maybe she's the Poughkeepsie killer.
Or was that your man from...
Join us at the start of next year to fucking figure that one out.
I don't think that was a woman killer.
We will never know, or at least we don't know right now, and we probably won't know by the time we're doing the episode. It's more on the investigation and the tapes themselves that we'll be discussing, and that'll be like the first week of January. So we're really all planned up for the rest of the year. We know what we're doing, man. We're ready. We're ready to go. You can check out everything that's coming and everything that's gone on Patreon at the Horrorverse Network. $5 a month, 7-day free trial. Give it to someone for Christmas. Let them hear about all the horror and crime and massacre. You can also catch us on socials at Alive Pod and at Aimee Rose IAA. And
on Twitch.
And we also have your mini monsters.
And my mini monsters every Monday. Monday's a busy day for me because I Twitch on Monday.
Just walk around the house all day like this.
Yeah.
Are you going fucking crazy? I'm like, put the coffee down, Aimee. Like tweet from something. Anyway, we'll be back all festive next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See y'all then. Same Alive time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love ya.
Bye-bye.